All right, so last time we talked about what would happen if you trained for endurance. Your heart would get bigger and stronger and would have a slightly thicker wall that would make the muscle stronger so that when it contracted, it could pump more blood out in each pump. It's the same, maybe a little bit higher fraction of how much blood was in the heart originally, but basically you're pumping out about the same fraction of the amount of blood, but your heart is much bigger, so now you're pumping out a whole lot more blood per pump. You're going to deliver more of that blood to your working muscle because now you've had increase in the number of blood vessels in the working muscle, and you've increased the mitochondria of the working muscle. So now you can use oxygen better, and you can deliver oxygen better, and your VO2 max could go up, and a number of other things that are going to be important for your endurance performance. So now the question becomes, how do we train these things? And what's the best way, or is there a best way? So by the end of this lecture, you should be able to describe two different endurance training philosophies. And really, they are philosophies, and it's really a combination of these things that are going to be important for building endurance. You're going to be able to compare and contrast long, slow distance and high-intensity interval training. You're going to be able to name the kinases that regulate the response to endurance exercise. You're going to be able to name a protein that controls the endurance adaptation. You're going to be able to define what we call polarized training. And what polarized training is you either train hard or you train easy, and you basically do about 80% of your training easy and then 20% of your training hard. You're going to be able to name the optimal training zones to improve performance. You're going to be able to explain why these training zones work well. Describe how you would make a training plan for a beginner, say yourself, and then you're going to be able to define the acute versus chronic workload ratio and how we can use this as a rough guide to regulate how quickly we progress. All right? But before we even do that, what we have to say is that endurance isn't a single thing. And endurance can be broken down into two types of endurance. There's the motor endurance, where we use our muscle like a motor. So when we're rowing and we're pushing with our legs and pulling with our back and our arms to overcome the inertia of the water. We're swimming where we're pulling with our arms and our triceps. We're cycling when we're using our muscle as a motor, our leg muscles as a motor. Or when we're Nordic skiing, when again, we're using our leg muscles as motors to overcome the inertia of the snow, the water, the road. Okay? So here, in these cases, muscle mass is important for performance. So if you're going to be a rower, these are guys who are 6'6" or women who are 6'2", and the women are about 180-ish pounds, maybe a little bit more than that. So these are big, strong women. And the best predictor of rowing performance is your mass. The bigger you are, the better rower you're going to be. That's why we have lightweight rowing, so that other people can participate, because if you only made it for an open category, it would just be the big people who would be able to row. Same thing is true for swimming. You're going to need muscles here, but not necessarily other places. Cycling, you're going to need big, strong legs, but you don't want to have muscle in the rest of your body. So that muscle mass is important in the areas where you need it. Rowing is big and muscular because you need both your upper body and your lower body. Whereas in swimming, you just need your upper body. Cycling, you need your lower body. In Nordic skiing, again, you're going to need both, but again, it's going to be a little bit shifted. So it's not necessarily exactly the same as rowing, right? So in events like cycling, swimming, you're looking to have strong muscles in the working muscles, but then you're trying to maximize your power to weight ratio. All right. And so those are the motor endurance. We use our muscle like a motor. The other type of endurance is strut endurance. And there's only really one type of endurance like this, and this is flatland running. Okay. Flatland running, you're running over a flat surface. It's Davis running because we don't have any hills here. Muscle mass is a negative correlate with performance, because now instead of using our muscle as a motor, we're going to use it as a strut. Remember, when we use our muscle as a strut, what we're doing is we're changing the joint that moves, or we're using our muscle much more like a tendon. So we're using it isometrically to allow us to transmit force better. But the realistic thing is that the goal for all endurance training is to maximize your power to weight ratio and to increase your mitochondria in these big motor units without increasing the risk of injury. All right. So what we're trying to do when we do endurance training, we're trying to maximize power to weight ratio. So the power in the cycle is coming from the legs. So you need to have strong legs, but the weight is coming from maybe your upper body or other things. So you don't necessarily want to have weight in that area. Swimming is the exact opposite. Your power is coming from your back and your arms and your shoulders. So you need to have back and arms and shoulders, but you don't necessarily need anything core or legs. Just a little bit of legs to keep the balance and keep the kick going. All right. And then once you've maximized power to weight ratio, now what you have to do is really focus on getting as many mitochondria as you can into those big motor units that we're going to need to go fast.